Hi guys and welcome back to the channel. I'm Aton, and in this tutorial we'll be creating an oak tree within Speedtree. This will be a tutorial from start to finish, so watch this video till the end so you don't miss any important tips and tricks that I'll be showing. So without any further ado guys, let's dive in. So here in Speedtree, let's add our trunk, right click, add trunk, and before we go any further, let's create our textures, add new, let's rename this to bark, and let's create another one, and let's rename this to leaf. And the textures that we'll be using are just basic textures from Megascans. So let's create our bark, let's import the appropriate materials, let's assign this to the trunk, and let's create the leaf shader as well. Let's bring in that leaf there, all the slots. Okay, and enable two-sided. Let's go to the cutouts and let's just quickly create the leaf card that we'll be using on the tree. So this is just basic polygon creation here, like this. Doesn't need to be perfect. Let's add a few points here in the middle. Let's add those like so. So our leaf is set up, our bulk material is also set up. So let's import our mesh that we'll be using to shape the oak tree too. So let's select this, let's add a new mesh, and let's import the mesh. Say no to that, and let's realign this to the right direction up. This is just basically a thread that I used a cube just to cut off the bottom within Blender. You can use any DCC application that you're comfortable in. So let's assign this shape to the trunk. So let's right click, add force, go to geo and mesh. Now let's scroll down where it says behavior and where it says collide. Let's set this to none. Let's go down and reset to translation so it's in the middle of your scene. And let's increase the scale to 1.3, 1.3, and the top to 1.2. And let's, 1.2. Let's increase the overall scale to something like that and hit W on the keyboard. And let's move this up to somewhere about there. Let's go into the trunk, and in the segments tab, let's amend the segment so we have enough detail to give the bark some displacement to it. So in order for us to see this, let's go over to the render view here and let's put this to scribed. And in the relative length value, let's set this to 3. And then the radius, let's set this to 6. And let's decrease the top so they're more dense at the bottom, something like this. And in the displacement tab, now we can go back to the normal standard view and source. Let's put this to material and let's increase this amount to we get some detail back there. Let's scroll down where it says flares. Let's increase this, and in the skin tab, let's amend this shape so we have something like this. Let's hit double click on this to give this a smoother runoff, like so. Let's move this into position, like so. Let's select our shape and let's hide it. Now let's add our first set of branches. So add geo, let's go to branches and big branches. So in the generation tab, let's set the boundaries from the first value to 0.35, or let's put it to 0.3. And let's go back to the trunk and let's activate the shape for enable geometry forces, like so. So let's select the second set of branches. In the spine tab, let's scroll down where we see in the generation tab where we see extend parent. Let's set this to any, so we have one at the top. And now select forces on your trunk, go to mesh, let's select this and just move this a little bit down so those ones can come through. Let's amend the scale just a little bit so we have something like this. Now let's go over to the big branches, and in the spine, let's take the shape scale down to 0.65, and let's add a few points here just to amend the scale to suit our needs here. And in the starting angle, let's put this to 8.4, and let's amend this green curve here at the bottom so the bottom one's a bit more straight, like so. And let's give it some gravity, very little, and let's draw just a basic shape here. And let's amend this so the top ones are not that much affected by the gravity. Something like this. Now let's go back to the big branches in the generation. Let's increase this to 3.8 and give this a spiral value of 2. Okay, and now let's go over to the big branches and let's give it that distinct split at the end that we want. So in the skin tab, let's go down where we see splits. Let's enable this in the trunk. So let's set this a value, the U value to 4 and the big branches to 1, something like this. Let's scroll down on the skin tab. Let's scroll down where you see the splits and let's increase this to 0.8 and the side expansion to 0.45 and 0.45. And let's scroll up to the skin and let's increase this just a little bit to something like this. Okay, so now let's add our third set of branches. Big branches. Let's go over to the generation tab. Let's zero this out. And let's scroll down where you see extend parent and let's set this to any. So let's work back here and let's go over to the spine. Let's decrease this amount. And the big branches as well. Let's decrease this amount. Let's go over to the big branches again. In the skin tab, let's scroll down where we see the splits. Let's give this a random value. And in the spine tab, let's give this some more strength. And let's work with the scale, something like this, increase the smoothness. And let's work back now with something like that. So now let's select these ones and let's add another set of branches, verification branches. And let's decrease the amount. Go to generation. Let's set this to any as well. And in the generation tab, first boundaries, let's set this to 0.2, very low, so they start right there at the point there. Okay, so in the generation tab here, let's put this aligned to 0.75, like so. Let's copy these, Control C, Control V, and let's paste these in there. And let's decrease this amount to 0.75. And let's rotate these ones just a little bit. So we have something that looks like this. So let's decrease this amount just a little bit. Okay, and let's add another set of verification branches. And let's disable the shape control on these ones. And now let's make them a little bit shorter at the points. In the generation tab, let's take this to 0.75 as well. Let's select those. Let's just quickly look. Looking real nice. And let's create another set here. Control C, Control V. And let's paste that in there. We have something that looks like this. So now let's create our batched leaves. So add geo batched leaves. Okay, let's deselect this so we can see better. Let's select our batch leaves. In the orientation, sky influence, let's take this all the way up. The sky sensitivity parent, let's put that to 0.5, and the amount, just something like this. And the skin tab, let's decrease this to about 0.8. Let's weld them, and let's locate our batched leaves that we've created, the leaf texture. Let's assign those, and in the orientation, let's focus on one branch. Let's select one here and press F on the keyboard so we can focus there. Okay, and in the orientation, on the final adjustments here, the out rotation, let's increase this like so. And in the generation tab, let's scroll down and extend parent, let's set this to any as well. Okay, so now we can fine tune this a little bit better. So in the generation tab here, let's decrease this amount with something like this, and the batch leaves as well. Let's generate some more. Let's set this to phyllotaxy, and let's set this to alternating discotus, and let's put this to 0.5, 0.35. Okay, and let's increase this value just a little bit more, as well as this one. Okay, so now let's work on the shape of the leaves themselves. So let's give this a curl and a fold value, like so. And let's Control F to show the entire tree again. So now we're looking, it's looking like an ash tree, correction, an oak tree. So in the curl amount, this amount, we want the bottom leaves to curl more than the top leaves. Okay, so let's take down the curl amount to in the minus, and let's select the trunk mode and decrease the curl at the top to something like this. Okay, so now let's go back and let's give a random value to everything. Go into the skin tab and let's decrease this amount to 0.75, and let's give some random sizes to the leaves themselves, and let's make them thinner or smaller at the points, something like this. And let's double click here to give it a Bezier curve. So now let's finesse this model some more. Let's select this and focus on that. Okay, let's do some optimization here now. So let's select the segments, go into the skin tab and disable weld, and in the segments let's decrease this amount to 0.1, and same for these ones, 0.1, and disabled weld as well. Okay, let's go back, let's increase this amount, and let's go back to the leaves and just increase the size just a little bit. In the generation tab, make sure everything here is at default, as you can see. Okay, so now let's control F. Now we're getting a oak tree. So now we need to create the inner leaves or the inner foliage that will give this tree the volume it needs. So let's scroll out as we've done all the work here. So let's go back till we see, yeah, from here. So let's Control C, Control V, let's copy that. Let's move this up. For now, let's just quickly hide these ones so we can see a little bit better. And let's add those to the first set of branches there, like so. So let's amend these to suit. Let's make them a little bit thinner, and let's make them a bit smaller. Firstly, let's just disable the shape control because we won't be needing them. Increase these ones. Let's increase the starting angle as well. Let's make them thinner. And these ones, let's go to the generation tab and let's set this to any. And in the skin tab of the first set here, let's take down the shape here. Okay, so after you have copied these set here, let's add those to the set of branches here. And before you go any further, just make sure you set the extend parent to none. If you leave this on, it will override the other ones and will give you some really nasty results here that we don't want. So disable this and set this to none. So we just have the inner. Okay, and let's amend the thickness of these as well. So in the batch leaves, let's select those and take this up to about 4 or 5. Give it some spread amount. You can thin this out 3.5, as well as for the twigs here as well. Let's take this 2.65. So let's amend the trunk to accommodate our root system. So in the displacement here, let's just decrease the flare at the bottom, something like this. And now let's select this, right click, add geo, and in decorations, let's locate roots. As you can see, nothing happens because we need to disable the shape force on the roots themselves. So in the spline tab, let's go over and stop shape control. And there you go, we have our roots. So now let's select the roots and let's increase the skin size. Let's amend this so we get something that's a bit thicker. And let's go over to the UV tab and amend this. Let's amend the length as well. For optimization purposes, let's hide these. Let's enable scribe mode and let's give this some more polygons to work with. So in the segments, let's set this to 3.5, and in the radial, let's increase this as well. So let's disable the scribe mode. Let's go back to standard, and in the displacement, let's use material, and let's increase this as well. So we have some height information on the roots as well. Let's increase the amount and give this some random value everywhere here, something like this. Let's select those. Let's go over to the skin tab and let's locate the spread amount for the top one. Do something like that. That looks a bit more reasonable. So now let's unhide all those. Let's scroll out and see the silhouette of the tree. Let's go to the batch leaves for the main tree and let's take down the size just a little bit to something like that. Okay, so now the next step will be to add the moss decals to the lower part of the trunk to give it some more detail. So let's quickly hide all these. So let's quickly create our decal texture. Hit the plus and minus icon, add new, and rename this to moss decal. Let's add that. Locate that. This is basically just again a moss decal from Megascans that you can use. Let's quickly locate it. This is the one. add to the slots, and let's quickly create a mesh for this. So add a few points here. I'll speed through this process because this is quite a simple process to follow, and create your mesh. Now let's assign these, and let's add a few anchor points. Just go crazier, add as much as you want, because these will be the moss leaf guards that will be scattering on the decal node, like so. Let's add these, and let's select our trunk, locate, geo, decorations, and decal nodes. There we go. So let's select our moss decal, and let's apply this to the decal node there. And boom, there you go, a decal node, and we're done. No, I'm just joking. So let's select the decal here and go into the generation tab here, and let's increase this to about 350. Maybe that's too much. Let's take it down to 250. Okay, so now to duplicate this material, let's select that, and let's create another mesh for that. Okay, so let's select that, add a new mesh. Let's go in here, edit, and let's create a mesh right over there. So let's select this, add a few points there. Let's take this to that point over there. For a few points, this low poly as possible. And let's amend the angle, and let's amend those like so. So now let's select the decal node, and let's add some patched leaves to them. Go into the orientation, sky influence, and in the skin tab, let's take this down to something like this. So let's go over to the materials, and let's add the moss that we've just created. Let's delete this one, add this one to the patched leaves there. And in the skin tab here, let's just select the copy that we've created. And in the orientation, let's give this some curl and fold. And let's give this yet again some random values. And then the skin tab, let's take this down just a little bit. So now let's go back to let's add some more anchor points to make that just a little bit more dense. Let's amend those. So now let's scatter this with a projector node. I have a full tutorial here, link above, where you can follow along and create a highly detailed trunk for you guys using Megascans assets, scanned models, etc. This will just be a basic scattering to give the trunk a little bit more detail with some moss assets. So let's create a base, and let's create our projector. Use disk. Let's just move this out of the way, take it up to about there, and R on the keyboard, and let's just rotate this. Okay, and let's select our base as well as our trunk, like so. So then let's throw the decal node on the base. In the decal node, let's take the generation down to 1 now, because we'll be using the rays from the projector. So let's select the projector, and the ray casting count, let's set this to a high value like 2500. Okay, so now we have rays projecting from a certain point to the trunk. As well, you can use another projector to scatter them on the first set of branches as well as the roots. So let's quickly add the roots and twigs like so, and let's move this a little bit more up to somewhere about there. And let's add the first set of branches, the big branches, like so. Now let's bring back everything, H on the keyboard. Now we have some detail there at the bottom. So let's give the lower part some twigs as well. So let's select these ones that we've created for the inner there at the top. Let's Control Copy, Control V, and let's assign this straight to the trunk. So for this purpose, let's just quickly hide everything here at the top, H on the keyboard, and as well as for the decals. So let's select these. Let's go over to the generation tab, and let's amend this to about 2.5, and let's set this to 5. And in the spine tab, let's decrease this amount, and let's make this way smaller. It's way smaller, and let's go over to the skin tab as well and set this to 2.5. Let's increase the amount, so we can change this to interval, give this a spiral of 2 and a spread value to full. And let's bring back the rest of the tree, H, and let's bring back our detailed moss here as well. So now you can create random variations of this tree within the shape. So furthermore, now you can optimize the tree so it's a little bit more poly sensitive. So let's work back from the branches here and so on. So let's go to these segments. As you can see, we can take this down to 0.5. That drastically takes down the poly count, as well as these ones, because they'll be covered with leaves. The same goes for this. Let's take this only down to about 2. So now we have drastically reduced the count of the poly count of the tree. So guys, that is it for this tutorial. If you want to see some of our other tutorials, look at these two right over here. And feel free to support us on our Patreon page. It will help this channel grow a lot. And the next part of this tutorial will be to create the seasonal settings for this tree, with seasonal from winter to summer, etc. So thanks for watching, guys. Stay safe and take care. Bye bye.